Welcome to Wild. I'm your host, Robin Lavasser. They say our biggest fear is not that we are inadequate. It's being powerful beyond measure. In this podcast, I will share how to break through imaginary ceilings, lean into success, discovering your purpose, and understanding how to create the business and life of your dreams. From failures to triumphs and all the tactics in between, let's jump into the wild arena together. Welcome back to Wild with Robin Lavasser. One of the things that absolutely changed not only me as a leader, but me as a loan officer that I think will really help you. And it's such a simple, this is going to be a short episode that if you just grab hold of, you're going to be able to take it and go, hopefully have an aha moment and go, okay, I just need to change that with not only myself, but with my team, with all parties, if you will, involved in my files. Here's a simple rule that absolutely transformed some things. And here's why. Have you ever noticed that a ton of energy gets wasted? Let's give you the scenario real quick. Let me back up. How many of you guys love to have, and I know you can't respond, but I can only imagine the head nodding potentially as you're driving on the treadmill, hopefully listening to this in some capacity, and you're saying, yes, 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 this makes sense. And that's the dreadful 22 back and forth email chain. How many of you guys can relate to just knowing, like, why didn't somebody say, time out, pause, I should pick up the phone. I should pick up the phone for that. And so how much energy is getting wasted in your business in general because we're using the wrong communication tool? And I want you to think of this and identify it in your business as what are the communication tools, and when would I grab the screwdriver, if you will? When would I grab the hammer? When would I grab, right, the pliers? And you would do those for different things, right? You would grab each tool. We have communication tools, and sometimes we try to hit everything with a hammer. Sometimes we try to use a wrench on everything, and it's like a wrench can't do the job of a screwdriver, right? The screwdriver can't do the job of the hammer. The hammer can't do what the pliers need to do. So what are the communication rules? Email, I just want to get this out of the way right out the gate for you. Email is for expectations that are being met or exceeded. Phone calls or face-to-face is for all the tough stuff. And I'm going to define tough in this, but if a project is on track, i.e. a closing, right? If a loan is on track, a deadline is being met, you're delivering great news, send the email. Doesn't mean you can't pick up the phone, doesn't mean you can't send the text, doesn't mean you can't do some other things, but it's okay to be an email when it's great news, right? When it's an update. Obviously, email being the form of communication that all parties are in agreement that that's the most efficient, right? When you can give great news, the file just funded. That's a beautiful efficiency. It's documented, it's easy, it's in writing, all people were on there. That's a win. When it's we're so excited to work with you, that's a confirmation, that's an exceeding or meeting expectations, right? There's lots of things that can happen in email. And so one of the first tasks that you want to do with this is identify with you and the team when email is truly applicable. And my best rule of thumb, I'm just going to go back to it real quick, is if we are meeting or exceeding expectations, email is absolutely a tool that you can pull out that's going to get the job done 99.9% of the time and do it really well, which is a huge win. What about when expectations aren't being met? I need an extension. The appraisal's late. The appraisal came in low. The appraisal has subject to items. The borrower, it can't get me the items needed, so we have to do a restructure. They can't pre-approve for that amount at $400,000. They can only get to $350,000. Anything that is not meeting or beating expectations is a pick up the phone moment. Now that might come with hey, I just shot you a phone call. You didn't pick up. Now I'm going to email and text and say, call me. But no news that isn't meeting expectation is being delivered without tone, without comfort that can only be provided by actual voice, right? Actual engagement. And then vice versa, you being able to hear reaction. So anytime you're expecting a bad reaction, you need to be able to hear it instead of see it or see and hear. But hearing it matters, not just reading it. There's a big, big, big difference. And so when someone's disappointed, when they're confused, when they're frustrated, when they're blindsided, email becomes a terrible substitute for a conversation. Email also is a terrible substitute when we're working with underwriting and processing and all these different things. When we are giving correction, email is a great follow-up tool. It's not a great initial tool, right? Because correction without context, without connection, without curiosity is dangerous, right? I've been a keyboard warrior too many times in my life in the business setting that later I've gone, whoopsie, sorry about that. My tone didn't come across appropriately. I made an assumption. I typed too fast. I let my emotions run my fingers, if you will, and I should have been having a two-way conversation, right? I should have been seeking first to understand. So email removes tone, it removes empathy, and it removes connection. Sometimes that's okay because where you can replace it is in things like, we're so excited. But to just type and not add an adjective that says, I'm incredibly frustrated. Well, the moment someone comes at me frustrated, I want to be able to respond, and there's no response except for me now typing back, and we're off to the races with 22 emails, and we're in a tug of war without actual conversation. Doesn't work, right? And so when our brains do something dangerous, we start reading emotion into words. And I tell the story all the time of years and years and years ago when I was like, this underwriter, I don't ever want to work with them again. And a leader for me sat down with me and she goes, well, read me the email that you're so incredibly offended by. And the truth is I was in a high pressure situation with a closing looming. I didn't want to let the realtors and the clients down, and the underwriter wasn't accepting what I was giving. And so I was highly emotional. And when the underwriter wrote me to explain, i.e., shut me down, not meet my expectations, I immediately read it in the context of, they're being snarky. They don't want to help me. They're being rude. They're uncollaborative, right? They're digging their heels in. They don't want to approve my loan, right? I kind of said every narrative on the planet. And so when I sat down with the leader, she said, Robin, reread that email out loud and read it in the voice of Minnie Mouse with the idea in your head the entire time that they're informing you. They want this to work. They're excited to close the loan, right? Like, give yourself this context. And so I did. And about halfway through, I had to stop reading because I was literally like smiling, laughing at myself at how much emotion I had given the words in the email. And that is something that all of us are guilty of. I'm still guilty of it to this day, even knowing these lessons. And so how do we prevent it in business? And what I would say is that a 5-minute phone call can prevent 5 days of misunderstanding. A 5-minute phone call can prevent a 5 o'clock walk out the door frustrated with the day instead of feeling good about it. Leaders, sales professionals, parents, spouses, friends, we often hide behind an email because it's fast. It can be very effective in many tool situations. And yet, when we hide behind it in general, sometimes we know for a fact we should pick up the phone, but we're like, I'm just going to test the waters, right? I'm going to throw the shot over the bow and see what the reaction is and hope there's not a bomb that goes off. Hope there's not a bomb that goes off. That's assuming somebody has and listen, I feel like I'm a fairly good leader and I've been in the industry a long time and I'm a business professional and I don't always have the mental capacity to not be tone deaf, right? To not read into tone, to not write my own narratives around things. And so it's a really big deal to not hide behind the email because it's easier, because it might be safer, because it gives us time to carefully craft and massage our message. Man, you could say, let me hop on a call, set tone, set minimal context, not have to chit chat for 20 minutes, but say, I'm going to send you an email, but I wanted to set tone first. I'm going to send an email. I want to set tone first. I can literally point to a couple things already this week that I probably should have set tone first prior to email, prior to texting, which I attribute to being the same as email. And so difficult conversations, difficult news, difficult deliveries require courage, not convenience. I'm going to say that one more time. Courage, not convenience. Woo! That's a big deal, right? And so how do we do a better job when we think trust is built when people hear your voice, not just read your words? So before you send a difficult email or your team does, I want you to ask yourself, would this relationship, would this outcome, would this progress be better served first by a quick conversation? Yes or no? If the answer is yes, if the answer is, I wish they would just pick up the phone, I wish we could just talk about this, I want you to say, this is a non-negotiable. Make the call. Hey, can you call me real quick? Can you have 5 minutes? And here's the thing. People will avoid a phone call when they don't feel psychologically safe to answer, right? And so they'll respond with call you back in 5 minutes when they know, hey, this is going to be a collaborative conversation. So if you're coming in too hot and nobody's ever picking up your call, I need you to look in the mirror as well, because sometimes we can do that and it just causes big issues. So phone calls are for the tough stuff. Email is for exceeding or meeting expectations and simply informing people, informing them. When you lean into tough conversations, I say this a lot, clear is kind. And when we avoid things, usually the people who build the strongest relationships and the healthiest cultures and the greatest influence take confrontation, take tough conversation head on. They don't hide behind email in general. And that leaves a lasting impression and memory. So you have a chance to take something that might be really hard and challenging and build upon it because of how you chose to approach, because of how you chose to communicate with clients, with referral partners, with underwriters, with processors. Doesn't matter. What matters is you choose the right tool. And when you choose the right tool and you do the right thing and you don't do what's easiest, you do what's best for the outcome, best for the relationship, best for the impression, best for the emotions that are going to come with it, it will create a beautiful ripple effect. And it will absolutely transform not only your days and communication in the business, but it will make an impression on other people and hopefully teach them something about how it feels to be communicated with the right way. So let's be the change we want to see. One of my favorite lines from Gandhi. And if this episode was helpful, I hope that you share it. We will see you on the next Wild.